If you pay close attention to the text and the stories of the Bible, you'll start to notice that threads weave their way through the various books. One of the major threads that you'll discover is that of the risky journey. God will often come and speak to someone and invite them to leave the familiar of their home, their place, their environment, the place they've become accustomed to, and he will call them with him to follow him to an unknown place. Abraham is one of the prime examples of this journey story. He hears the voice of God, and God calls him to leave behind his people, his land, his gods, and he sets off without any maps or directions or anything other than what God has told him. And he goes where God takes him. It's a risky journey. He doesn't know what is to come, and he is relying on his understanding of what he has heard from God, but he goes as an expression of faith. Then there's another kind of story that comes to mind, another kind of journey that we read about in the Bible. And I think about the story of Ruth. In the book of Ruth, there is another risky journey that takes place, and this is a journey that requires loyalty. The book of Ruth, as you'll probably know, is a story of a woman called Ruth who suffers tragedy. Her husband dies, and she is left with a sister-in-law and a mother-in-law, and they're all very vulnerable. And the mother-in-law, Naomi, tells them, go and find new husbands. You don't need to stay with me. You need to look after your own interests now. But in a moving moment, in a moving passage in the book of Ruth, in a display of loyalty, Ruth refuses to leave Naomi, and she says, where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people should be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. It's a wonderful display of loyalty, taking a risky journey. But sometimes in the Bible, someone will be taken on a journey only to discover that God is bringing them back home again. And in our reading from Mark 6, we meet Jesus and his disciples back home at Jesus' hometown of Nazareth. These disciples had been with him now for some time, but they too had to make that decision of whether to go with him or to stay where they were. They had each encountered Jesus one by one, and he had given them an invitation. And they had chosen to go with him, to go where he goes, to leave their homes behind to follow him. But now Jesus has taken them to his hometown. And you would think this would be a wonderful moment of celebration, a homecoming. But the reaction of Jesus' fellow Nazarenes was far from welcoming. They listened to him teaching in the synagogue. They were astounded by what they were hearing. But then they start to ask some questions. Where did this man get all this? They say. And then one of them says, is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary? And Mark tells us that they took offence at him. Now, Jesus is not unknown for getting into trouble. He normally gets into trouble for what he says. If you read Luke's account of a similar time when Jesus preached in Nazareth, in Luke chapter 4, you'll see that they really didn't like what he had to say. They were outraged at his words, and so they try and kill him on that occasion. But in our story from Mark, the issue isn't just with what Jesus has to say. Rather, they take issue with who he is. They look at him and they see the Jesus who grew up in Nazareth. They see the Jesus who learned to walk and to talk there. They see the Jesus who played in their streets. They see the Jesus who learned a trade as a carpenter. That's who Jesus is to them, still a local boy, one like us, one who shouldn't get ideas above his station. And from the mouth of Jesus comes words that they can't hold together with their image and understanding of him. So rather than change their understanding of Jesus, they hold tightly onto who they think he is, and so cut themselves off from all he wanted to do among them. Mark tells us that because of their unbelief, Jesus could do no works of power there, except laying hands on a few sick people to cure them. And isn't that really sad? Here is Jesus. He longs to bring healing and freedom to his own people. And yet they are so hard of heart, so set in their thinking, so rigid in their ways that they are not open to receiving it. Jesus' inability to do deeds of power here is nothing to do with him and everything to do with these people. He won't force himself on them, but the gift has to be offered and received. They're unwilling to receive. So Jesus pronounces his verdict, his judgment. Prophets are not without honour except in their hometown, in the place where he and his words and his teaching and his acts of power should be most welcome. He finds no welcome at all. From those who should accept what he has to say with joy, for those who should welcome him as he is, he receives nothing but rejection and unbelief. And I think we need to hear in this story a warning for us today. I think we can become so familiar with Jesus, so certain that we know who he is, that we lose our sensitivity to the challenge of his words. We think we know him. We think we have him worked out. But when we place Jesus in a neat system of our own making, we are at risk of missing the opportunities that he offers to show us works of power. And we've seen this happen in history. It's happened before. People who are so certain they know who Jesus is, so convinced that they understand him, that when he comes and seems to be doing something new or unfamiliar, something that goes against their understanding, they reject it. Just think of the example of how much wrestling it took to overturn the system, the great evil of slavery in this country. Think about what people thought about slavery as a system. Think about the people who thought they knew what Jesus would say about that system. They go to the Bible. They would go and find verses that speak about slaves obeying masters, and they would say, well, there you are, that's the Jesus way. It took a great deal of faithful wrestling, a great deal of protest, a great deal of courage on the part of those who fought for freedom, to wake people up to the evil of the system of slavery. And Christians were in the freedom work of that moment. They were key to that work happening. But sadly, they were also key in the efforts to keep things exactly as they had always been. Christians were among those who are the most vocal in keeping things as they were. Jesus comes as one who calls to set people free. He speaks it of his own mind. He tells us in the Gospels, that is his mission. He is clear about his intentions to heal and restore and to give life. And when he comes to do just that, we do not allow him. And so I wonder, will we learn from history? Will we learn from this story in Mark? Will we be awake to the ways that he wants to go about his work even if it means we have to rethink our image and our understanding of him, even if it means it breaks the boundaries of what we are familiar with? Or will we be like the people of Nazareth who box him in, telling him who he is and who we want him to be? I think that warning is for us today as well. But the journey of Jesus continues. He doesn't stay, he doesn't end in his hometown. His journey carries on, and the disciples who are with him, their journey carries on, and they must ask themselves this question: am I going home, or will I go with him? Because they would have seen how his own people had treated him. They would have seen how they understood Jesus. They would have seen that they disbelieved that he could be anything more than just a carpenter, someone's brother, someone's son. And the question comes to those disciples: will we go with him even now? And in Mark's Gospel, in our passage, he tells us what the answer was. Jesus called the 12 to him, and he began to send them out. And they went. They went, and we read that they cast out unclean spirits. They went to teach about the kingdom of God. They went to call people to repentance. They called people to freedom from sickness and oppression, and they offered liberation to those they met. And they did it all in his name, with his authority. They were loyal to him and his cause, and because of that they saw deeds of power come into the lives of those people who were hurting and who were helpless. And that's the invitation that's on offer for you and for me today. As modern day disciples of Jesus, we too must make that same choice. Will we follow him to the risky places, even when others tell us who he is, who they want to limit him to? Will we risk the rejection of our own families, our own people, our own hometowns, for the sake of being with him where the works of power are happening? Will we go out into the world with Jesus, carrying with us only the essentials that we need, that good news of the freedom of Christ? Will we be people who bring healing to the broken, hope to the hopeless? Will we cast out demons of oppression and injustice? Can we say to Jesus, as Ruth said to Naomi, where you go, I will go? May we have the wisdom to allow Jesus to challenge our systems and break up the boxes that we try and keep him in. May we have the faith to trust him, to believe in his words. And may we have the courage to go with him on that risky journey, not knowing where we are going, yet trusting that he goes with us every step of the way. Amen.